On this Trinity Sunday, as we consider Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, we are in the Gospel of John, the 16th chapter, the 12th through the 15th verses. Hear this word. I still have many things to say to you, but you cannot bear them now. When the Spirit of truth comes, he will guide you into all the truth. For he will not speak on his own, but he will speak whatever he hears, and he will declare to you the things that are to come. He will glorify me, because he will take what is mine and declare it to you. All that the Father has is mine. For this reason, I said that he will take what is mine and declare it to you. In today's reading, we are in what is called the farewell discourse. In the Gospel of John, this is when Christ gets ready to say goodbye. Keeping track of where we are in the liturgical season, this does put us in a spot before the Passion, but in understanding Trinity Sunday. It's important to know that Christ did not leave the disciples alone, that as Christ begins to look toward the cross, as his disciples don't quite understand what's about to happen. Today's reading is one of 5 instances when he speaks of the advocate, the paraclete, telling them what is to come, and that when he is gone, what will carry the tradition after him. Not too long ago, Harvard was in the news, as it is. Students, faculty, and even the board had turned against one another. The news reported that outside agitators had flocked to Boston to support their side in a historic clash between liberals and conservatives. When the dust had settled, the Reverend Henry Ware had emerged as the Hollis Professor of Divinity. And Harvard, once a bastion of orthodoxy, had become solidly Unitarian. It was quite the scandal. In protest, congregational staff and students fled from Harvard and, as they do, established Andover Theological Seminary in 1807, thus creating from the first college the first graduate school in America. And not too far away in that little town of New Haven, long before football even existed, Yale emerged as a Trinitarian counter to Harvard's Unitarianism. But that's old history. 200 years ago, debates over the nature of the Trinity were fiery enough to split congregations in two, and split they did. Before the divide, Congregationalists in the Boston area were largely Calvinist, possessing a more orthodox theology. John Calvin's influence was strong, leading many to affirm that doctrine of total depravity, unconditional election, limited atonement, irresistible grace, and perseverance of the saints. Many themes which I'm sure you've not heard in confirmation, but which then were commonly referred to as tulip. In her coverage of this period, the Reverend Meg Barnhouse notes that those who did not agree did what many liberal preachers do today. They just preached around the Calvinist doctrine, choosing to preach instead about social responsibility, ethical behavior, and the loving kindness of God. When that split did occur, Boston Congregationalists were forced to choose. They were divided between Orthodox Trinitarianism and liberal churches. In Hingham, not too far down the road, where Old Ship, what we might know as the longest-serving ecclesiastical space in this country, well, the Unitarians won that one. So some congregants left, and right down the street, they established Hingham Congregational Church, which is also still active, but not the oldest ecclesiastical space in America. But again, that was long ago. Today, outside of seminaries, it's rare to find people arguing about the Trinity. Harvard still makes the news, but rarely for religious reasons. The New England Unitarian controversy was settled long ago. Now, both Yale Divinity School and Harvard Divinity School are fully ecumenical. Even Andover Theological School, now Andover Newton, trains Congregationalist and Unitarian Universalist seminarians. But the list does goes on. Regardless of whether a seminarian is now at Duke Divinity, at Princeton Theological Seminary, or at Union Theological Seminary, or a similar institution, they are bound to receive a robust theological education without needing to profess a specific creed or confession. If you survey current classrooms, you will find Episcopalians, Lutherans, Methodists, Congregationalists, Baptists, Catholics, Muslims, Jews, even agnostics, atheists, and even occasionally practicing Wicca. And truly, the only way to tell them apart is what they're wearing for shoes. While the institutions of today are much different than those of yesterday, the faithful search for the Holy Spirit has not diminished. 200 years ago, Boston split because you could not be Trinitarian and disagree with Calvinist theology. Today, rather than opposing our Unitarian peers, we in the UCC and even we in Norwell find them to be some of our closest allies in the public struggle of how we will define God. It does make one wonder, was the Harvard crisis an issue with the Trinity? Or was it a matter of leaving the field because those who claimed the Trinity were not leaving any room for interpretation? Maybe that is an experience you can relate to, or more accurately, the unchurched, that large mass that we've lost, maybe they can relate to. After all, Christianity is a bit divided today. However, you would be hard-pressed to find a time that has not been defined by controversy and even accusations of heresy. Before Harvard and the Unitarians, there was Gnosticism, there was Manichaeanism, there was Arianism, and the Orthodox fracture that gave us the Greek Orthodox Church. There was even the Reformation in 1517, followed shortly by the Catholics had to have the Counter-Reformation. In more recent times, we are able to see both Methodists, Episcopalians, Lutherans, Presbyterians, Baptists, and Congregationalists, yes, even us, have all split over disagreements about the ordination of women, and especially of whether or not we will be open and affirming. We are within living memory of Vatican II and the formation of the World Council of Churches, two things which should have been our greatest ecumenical triumphs. And yet, despite these triumphs, it can still feel like we have never been more divided. Surely, if we could go back, all the way back to the beginning, before Constantine, as some seminarians would argue, surely if we could go back to the formation of Christianity, to that Pentecost moment, we could find some pure, uncontested moment when everyone got along. But even then, since day one, immediately after that Pentecost moment, we have been divided. But it's important to note that division in faith does not inherently signal a need for right or wrong. We address disagreements because we ask questions that matter, and we dare to ask questions. In that way, our experiences are no different than that of the apostles. Remember that in the book of Acts, there were arguments over circumcision, adherence to Jewish law, and waxing and waning over the place of Gentiles in the new church, all culminating in that Council of Jerusalem. Peter, along with James, the brother of Christ, rose to that occasion, and they did bring Jews and Gentiles together. And they created what we now know as Christianity. But surely that is a different Peter than the one that we encounter and is present for today's reading. Because how can one person betray Christ and also become the first head of the church? It's a good question. And we might find that the answer, though mysterious, we might have to attribute that to the advocate and to Jesus' foresight. See, when Jesus delivered his farewell discourse, he knew he was about to be betrayed. Christ offered the advocate to a room of friends who were about to abandon him. Christ knew this, but the apostles had no idea what was about to happen. The apostles were not prepared for Christ to die. They were not prepared for him to ascend. And they certainly were not prepared to take on the mantle of leadership that he handed over. It's important to note that the apostles were not extraordinary people. They were profoundly ordinary individuals who, through faith, did extraordinary deeds through the guidance of the Holy Spirit. When facts are blurred and the truth is difficult to discern, our only hope is the Trinity. After all, the Trinity is that thing which separates a sermon from a TED Talk. Through the work of the Holy Spirit, all believers can emulate the life of Christ and in doing so be drawn closer to God. When we are lost, when facts are no longer agreed upon, when everything we know or rely upon crumbles, the Holy Spirit guides us towards a firm foundation on which to build. If we look at our divided faith with an open heart, we might see millions of people who are doing the hard work of discerning the movement of the Spirit. But maybe we bear the question, how do we know which faith is genuine? Or, for those who want to know, but really, which denomination is right? Maybe we are in such a tough place because too many people are asking the wrong questions. The Trinity is not a mystery that we are called to solve. It's a mystery we are lovingly invited to consider and pursue. Wherever and whenever the Trinity has been solved, you are likely to find trauma and abuse of clerical and holy authority. We are invited to approach God and the holy with fear and trembling, because this holy pursuit can lead to crusades and to compassion. But Boston knows this duality too well. You are a city of abolitionism and of bus boycotts, of great awakenings and of spotlight investigations. Just yesterday, masses of Bostonians protested Keynes less than a mile and 255 years from the spot of a Boston massacre. We cherish the blessing that in this stale age of patriarchy and chauvinism, that we have both a mayor and governor who are strong, capable women. But we also carry the burden of knowing that both work within walking distance of where another strong, capable woman, Mary Dyer, was hanged. The highs and lows of a city on a hill, one of many cities founded after the Reformation spirit quieted down in Europe, has high expectations. One would hope that pilgrims, religious refugees, and immigrants would have empathy and offer the openness and compassion they'd been denied in England, in Russia, and in Germany, and everywhere else that they'd fled. But when it came down to it, there was not room for Quakers or Unitarians in this city on the hill. So when we ask, what will the Spirit move us to do in this time? It would be wise to contemplate the question, because the answers do have consequences. This journey of discipleship is not easy. It entails great highs and lows, struggles that can only be matched with faith strong enough to bear the load. But is there any greater journey? In this age of cynicism, Maybe it is right to be overly aware of the damages wrought by overconfidence, zealotry, and the ever-tempting lure of idolatry and theocracy. But just like the disciples, Christ offers us the advocate, knowing that we are greater than our stumbles, that we might realize the kingdom if we but choose our better angels. If this city on a hill is to have a beginning, let it be that moment Reverend John Robinson stepped off the boat and declared, "There is yet more light and truth to break out from God's holy word." Light and truth, lux et veritas, or veritas, is the spirit of two institutions that strove to answer the Reverend Robinson's sermon. Harvard, Veritas, and Yale, Lux et Veritas, began as schools to train and send clergy out to the churches being built in the center of newly formed towns. Before they had endowments worth billions, those two institutions sought to prepare a people to receive and work with the Holy Spirit. Before Christianity was bolstered by billions of believers, it was a small gathering of faithful trying to discern the truth in their own times. We need not be blinded or burdened by the weight of our own times. The call is the same, if we will but answer it. Seek the Holy Spirit, so we might know and follow Christ, and in following Christ, be near the ever-loving arms of God. Let it be so.